All right, everyone. Welcome in. It is time for Live at 5. That means we've ended the week again. We've reached the finish line for some of us on the East Coast. I know. I remind everybody of that every single week. But I'm so glad to be with you. I'm Dave Shore. Thanks so much for watching. Got a fun show for you today as I dial back the old time machine to another one of my former markets, one of the great places. Let's get into it right now. All right, here we are on a Friday. It's Live at 5. You can catch the past episodes on YouTube. Just search Shore Sports Media, and you'll find some of the past episodes. I'll run some of those past episodes and guests down at the bottom of our screen as well. I've been looking forward to this. I mentioned it yesterday on a couple of the social media platforms, so I know you've been looking forward to it too. I have been blessed to work for a number of good bosses. This guy goes down in the great category, so I welcome him in. Kenny Rice, my longtime friend and former TV sports boss in Lexington, Kentucky. How you doing, Kenny?
Dave, my great friend, good to be with you. It's good to catch up. It's been a while, and I miss our rendezvous in Los Angeles, which I'm sure we'll explain later.
We definitely will. You know, it's a very small world when you can run into each other like that. There, I got your name up there as well. Kenny, you were fortunate. I always thought in the business that guys that found a comfortable position, got to stay in a particular market for a long period of time, they were really the most fortunate. It's fun to move, but you really solidified yourself in that Lexington, Kentucky area. When did you start there?
Yeah, 1980. I was just out of college, and I worked for the ABC affiliate for a long time. Probably too long, but I was there for a long time. And during that time, I became a correspondent for something called Down the Stretch on ESPN. And then that led to doing some stringer work when they had stringers. You know, back in the day, as you know, Dave, when you call ESPN, and it was, Chris Berman might answer the phone, Bob Lee might answer the phone. It was basically a newsroom that had one satellite dish. When I would send them stories, I would have to put on Delta Airlines, Delta Dash. And then I would call them and say, it's going to land in Hartford. And here's a waybill number, and here's what the story is, and here's how long it is. And then, things kind of evolved from there, doing a lot of stringer work and freelance work over the years while I was still in Lexington. And then I went with NBC in 99 and have been with them, thank God, since that time.
Yeah, that's why you haven't been on in the past month when I was first thinking about having you on, because you were a little busy with the Triple Crown, which if anyone knows and watches, Kenny does a fantastic job because he keeps up with everybody. Kenny, you can really motor around that track still.
Thank you. I'm holding up. I mean, I had to make some big moves this year from the barn area out to the track at the Belmont to talk about the surface conditions for the Belmont Stakes. So I was semi-proud of myself, Dave, that I was still having my breath and hadn't fallen down. And, when you know how it is when you're in a moment of a show and the adrenaline's going and you've done your homework, so you feel comfortable in the preparation, things just seem to happen in a very good way. I'm not that guy that believes necessarily in luck. I think you put yourself in position for luck as you have in your career. And I think I have in mind that, when the opportunity came, that was some luck, but we had put ourselves in a position where we were ready to seize that moment. And that's what it is with every live show. And, I just always love doing the live things like this right now. I love doing the live things. And I set my own camera up. How am I doing on that? That, as you know, nobody ever asked me to shoot cameras,
No, I don't think I saw you one-man band, but that was okay because that's why I was there. To go out there and get those stories. Kenny, you know what? You just led me into that because we have some fun here. You'll never remember this, but I went out to a fox hunt somewhere in eastern Kentucky for my very first story. And I had to get there for, I don't know why you wanted to show a fox hunt, or maybe I came up with the idea, but it was like 5 a.m. And those hunters, they lined up all their dogs in their cages. And I had that huge camera with the deck, and they said, just let us know when you want to when you want us to release the hounds. And so I was just getting set and I hadn't hit roll. And for some reason, they thought they heard me say go, and they released all the dogs. And by the time my camera and tape finally got up to speed, you see the last two slow dogs going by as they all started. So my career as a feature reporter never got off to a great start there.
Sorry about if I did that. I want to apologize now. When they made me sports director, I was doing weekends for a year, and then they gave me the job of sports director, which is pretty good. Just out of college by about a year, and I was doing a lot of one-man bands still. And we had the smallest staff, as you know, in the Lexington market. We were the ABC station, and actually it was me and another guy at that time. It was way before you. It's like 10 years before you came in. And so yeah, I'm thinking, this is nuts. I'm shooting a UK basketball game. I'm coming back and editing it. Now I'm anchoring the 11 o'clock news too. It wasn't so much the workload as that, you got to focus a little bit. So this is embarrassing to say now, but purposely, I kind of messed up some video every now and then. Maybe I didn't white balance as well as I could, or had a little, cockeyed shot. And they said, well, your photography skills are slipping, because I'd one-man band for the first year I was there. And I said, well, I got so much going on now. I'm the sports director. Yeah. I'm anchoring 5, 6, and 11, and I'm having to run out and shoot. He said, you're right. We need to add another person in sports. We need a 3-man sports staff. And I guess I could say that 30 years later, what are they going to do now? But yeah, that's how we actually got a 3-man sports staff. If I'd been really good at one-man band, gosh knows how it'd have turned out.
No, I know. Oh no, you could have been great at it. Can you imagine, Kenny? I know that we do it now, but can you imagine if then we had social media? We also had to come back and post comments and thoughts on social media.
Well, I think I would have lost a job very early. I think for all the good things of social media, and the fun thing I like about it is keeping in touch with friends like you. Yeah. And, some guys, a few friends from the old days of school and playing in basketball leagues and softball leagues and all that. That's fun. What I don't like is, the opinions of people. They're so angry. I would never think about sending someone, say like an electrician or a plumber or an insurance salesman, some mean, nasty tweet about how I don't like their job, or who could do a better job, or why didn't you wire it this way, or shouldn't you have sold this at a better rate? But it seems like those of us, especially in the media, that engage, I just don't get into it. I tweet a little bit. I promote like what we're doing possibly, but I don't get into the back and forth, because it's just hard for me, especially the people that hide behind the pseudonyms. I don't know who Joe Loves Horses at 97 in LA is. I don't know. Maybe we crossed paths someday. Maybe we didn't. Maybe he's a famous trainer and didn't like an interview. I don't know. Therefore, I don't get engaged in. Plus, I'm just not that angry, Dave. I just don't have that vitriol that I want somebody fired, or I don't like them that much. And I think that's the downside of social media. The craziness about it all is now, kids are smart. Young men and women, I guess I should say, politically correct, 18, 17. They're so much more advanced than kids when I was 17 and 18, that, they're making their own news. They're letting you know when they're going to choose college. And it's not always major college. It's not always the top people. It's like going to Division III school. They're making their announcements before the Division III school is. So that's the biggest change, is social media. And I'm still not sure it's all for the best, although I do like the technology that you and I can sit here, and I'm looking at you on my iPhone, and I can see you clear as a bell.
Well, it's a 2-shot live shot like we used to do all the time, and this time it actually works. Right?
You remember some of the live shots when they moved into the old newsroom? I remember the old newsroom. It's one of the first live shots we did. They're going to have a coach was in the newsroom, and I was interviewing him. It was for the state high school playoffs, football playoffs, and the mic, we couldn't hear him. And I said on the air, I said, he's only like 20 yards away. Why don't you just bring him into the studio? And the news director was all upset with me after that. But that's neither here. Now we could have just had him at his home, on a telephone talking.
See, we're pulling off a 2-shot live shot like one-man banders should. All right, this is kind of a reunion special. So I've got some comments of people that are checking in. There's the great Fanny, who used to be our producer. What a thrill to see you guys.
Bonjour, Fanny.
I believe in France, right?
Yes, and wonderful and so knowledgeable about horse racing.
Yeah,
Remember,
so
she would go up and help us cover the Derby when we were doing like 10, 12 stories a week, being the ABC station at the time. And ABC was doing the
Yeah.
Derby back in the 90s. So, salespeople, our salespeople, they were selling everything Derby. And you and me were up there. Our buddy Keith Spalding, Charles Watson, one of our great photographers, and Fanny would come and help us out many times. And we do cross paths periodically, usually at the Breeders' Cup. So I hope to see Fanny at Del Mar coming up later this fall.
Speaking of at Churchill Downs, I have to ask you. You guys are big time at NBC Sports when you do these. You and my man Tirico. That's a big time staff. But I don't think you remember this. But we had a trailer at Churchill Downs, and one time I was sitting in there working on a script. You were probably out hobnobbing and covering things on the track. And I looked over at the trailer next to me, and it was ABC Sports's. And Jim McKay had a makeup person putting makeup on his hands right next to me while I had like nothing to put on. I said, you know what? Someday I'm going to get to a point where somebody needs to put makeup on my hands, but I've never gotten there.
As hard as I've tried, they put makeup on me, but I've never had hand makeup. Never. I never reached that level. I made it to the network day, but I never reached hand makeup level. And probably never will.
No, here's another one. The great Mossy.
Hey, Steve.
Who obviously we bumped around with on the Lexington circuit there, and I would be shoulder to shoulder shooting some high school baseball game with Mossy or football.
Yeah, and he put together a really nice documentary he won an award for recently on Joe B. Hall, and John Calipari, the two UK basketball coaches and the generations apart, sharing their stories. It was really enjoyable to watch.
Here is Chris Staples. Hi, Dave and Kenny. I was at TVQ 87 to, I assume that's 88. Good times, or maybe 89.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Yeah, good to remember. They we were talking earlier, Dave, today, and it's impossible to come up, I think, with even a ballpark figure how many people we worked with. Because, first off, Lexington market's changed a little bit, but it was very much a college, like me when I started. I'm just out of college. I'm like 23 years old or so, and I'm getting my first commercial TV job. And, a lot of people came and went. I remember we had people that worked like 1 or 2 days, and then they were gone. Yeah. We had an all-pro football player come in to be a sports intern one time. One of the great Chicago Bear linemen, Wally Chambers. And, Wally's an all-pro then. He played at Eastern Kentucky University.
Yeah.
He'd come back to Eastern to work on his degree in the off-season. And he came in and he wanted to be a sports intern, get some credit. And I said, okay. I said, you kind of have to go out like on weekends and, you're working weekends. So, and you'll be shooting, like softball tournaments or something, Wally, because it was early May, high school baseball things are going on. And he said, no, I'm good with that. And I went on the parking lot and we talked, and, what a nice guy. And I've seen him several times over the years. I look out there, he's driving a Porsche 911, if you remember back then.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked around, I said, you realize your car is more expensive than all the cars collectively in this parking lot. We're all driving like 8-year-old used cars. And Wally's driving a brand spanking new Porsche. I said, I don't know if you'll like this job, Wally. I mean, you should be in Chicago, working in that market, doing, giving your analysis of things. You're big time. And Wally left after 2 days, by the way. He came in, he shot a couple of, I don't know, a softball turn. I can't even remember exactly what he shot, but he agreed that it was maybe just he could have reached a little higher.
Well, I think you did overall. Let's get another one in. Marcus Riley, 2 blasts from the past. Great to see you guys. Yeah, Marcus.
Hey, Marcus. Yeah, I remember Marcus.
Yeah, good to see Marcus doing very well. I follow him as well, and he's big time.
He has, and it's good to see. There was a lot of talented people passed through Lexington, and still have stayed in Lexington and doing really well. And I always thought our market held up I'd put our market up against Nashville, Cincinnati, Louisville,
Definitely.
the bigger cities. When you go there covering events sometimes, and they look like, oh, what size market are you?
Yeah.
And I'd go,
yeah, I thought that's a very unique perspective because, the rankings, Kenny, they always had a TV markets. I think there needed to be an asterisk next to some of them because when you look at what you and we covered, being that close to Cincinnati, having Louisville, having Lexington, large sporting events, nationally ranked college teams, you really couldn't ask for better in many situations.
You couldn't. No, I mean, it was perfect. And, Kentucky football was bad for many years. You know that. We've seen a lot of losing games. I'm glad my friend Mark Stoops, I have become good friends with Mark. I'm happy that, at least there's promise there's real hope every year. But, going back to that day, even with football not very good, I remember the first game I ever covered, one of the first interviews I ever did at 36 was I interviewed this running back named Herschel Walker that had come in. I covered Georgia, Kentucky. It was the first football game I covered for the local TV station. And over the years with the SEC football, and then of course, like I say, with basketball, Final Four trips and national championships and playing big time schedules. And in Cincinnati with the Bengals and Reds just up the road, the Derby, of course, Louisville basketball when Denny Crum was there, going back to those days. I thought Lexington was a really unique market that we did. And a lot of people passed through probably because of the horse business, that you wouldn't expect. Guys like Gary Player, the great golfer who's into the horse business. And you'd go to a horse sale or something and you'd see somebody over there and you go, how come there? Rod Laver or somebody would be there. I remember Jerry Hall, Mick Jagger's girlfriend at the time. She came in. She was dating somebody else and she came into the horse sale. It was an eclectic group of people that you would see every year in July. That was the big horse sale at that time. And, it was always a lot of fun to kind of go back and look at those moments, and especially some of the stories that you and I got to do together and some of the coverage we had of, tournament runs and all the kind of fun and sometimes crazy stuff in between.
Now, I've often criticized in some markets that I've been in, I've criticized sports anchors that in all my years there, I very rarely ever saw them at an actual game because they never left the studio. I won't say what markets like Los Angeles.
I was going to say Los Angeles. I know a couple of those guys out there, and I'd go to games as a spectator and never see them,
Yeah, no, so that would happen. But I will have to say, Kenny, you got out and about. You trained me early on that we were not going to be guys that hid inside the studio. You got around. You're gonna love this. I'm gonna bring this up right here.
So see one, Brad James, Jamal Mashburn with what looks to be a secure future. The 4th pick overall tonight, selected by the Dallas Mavericks. Dave Shores at the Palace in Auburn.
I just wanted to give you an example, Kenny. That was the time when you would anchor doing that, and then here's a time when I would anchor.
90-48. And UK now 4-1. They will play Texas Tech. That game, remember, up in Cincinnati next Saturday. Here's what Kenny Rice had to say about the game afterwards.
Well, Coach Rick Pitino and the Cats served up a big old heaping helping of Southern hospitality tonight to Boston University. First by allowing.
There you go, Kenny. There's the memories. You still have hair too. I mean, I had to show that.
It's mine. Yeah, I'm very blessed. I still got hair. But that was the fun part. And we did. You were out on this. I was out, and I couldn't imagine not doing it that way. I couldn't imagine being just a news reader, in this case, a sports reader. That would never been enjoyable at all. It was getting to meet the people and getting the feel for the event. That was a huge part of it. And like we just talked about the market, look, you're up there covering the draft. You're covering up there when Mashburn was drafted. Up at Auburn Hills and NCAA tournaments. And we were a busy team, especially like January through May. From basketball season through that Derby, it was nonstop. And we put a lot of 7-day weeks in, and still never got that overtime pay, did we?
No, I didn't even file that. I think we changed ownership so many times I didn't know who to file it to. Steve brings up a question here, or brings up a comment that you and he were in Philly for that 92 Kentucky Duke game. Kenny, is there anything that'll ever top that? Was that one of the? I remember seeing the look on your face too on the CBS broadcast.
Yes.
When you were like, "What in the hell am I going to have to say now?"
And a friend of mine that worked with me at NBC, Alana Campbell, who pushed together some of the great feature pieces for CBS during the whole tournament run and the magic, the one magic moment, the one shining moment. She does a lot of that producing. And she sent me that freeze frame about 2 years ago that I have because she was revisiting the game. And she said, I came across this face I recognized, which was nice that, that many years later, somebody could still recognize me. But yeah, the whole deal on that was there's an overflow crowd, overflow media at the Spectrum. So some of us, which actually was to my benefit, were put on the first row of the permanent seats, which was really a lot better than sitting like in the second row trying to look over heads. I was in the first row of permanent seats. So I was foul line extended from where Leitner hit the shot. I mean, I'm looking right at it when it's coming to him. Just over to, just behind me was his mother and some of his friends. There were Duke fans, because we're in the seats now. We're up in the permanent seats. So there were Duke fans all around me. And so they got a shot naturally of his mother and family celebrating, as they should. And there was me kind of, I don't even know what I was thinking, Dave. I've looked at that shot several times. So I'm just looking at the scoreboard. It was actually disbelief because that was I'd already written the story in my head about how, which I think was really clever, at that time, how nobody expected this team to do this. And here they were just 2 years off probation, first year off probation, actually.
Yeah.
And here they were, going to the Final Four. That was it. John Woods.
Wait a minute. I think we lost Kenny there. Hold on.
Dave.
Yep. There you are.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. I think we've lost you. Here, I'll remove you from the screen. Hopefully we'll get you back. Well, if you're enjoying these stories, and I never know exactly what direction we're going to, I'm going to try to see if we've got Kenny. Are you still there? You know what? I kind of cursed this when I said here we are pulling off a live shot. Kenny, if you can hear me, go ahead and there you are. There you are. I got you. There you are. Can you hear me now? Well, here, I'll bring up a couple more comments while Kenny's getting. There he is. Let's see if I can remove him from there you are. There you are.
We should have got Steve Moss to come over and help me with this. I told you had the most technologically challenged person ever probably coming on with you today. But anyway, I'll wrap it up quickly. So they get a lot of shots of Leitner's mom actually during the game. So I was on a lot, little clips, because I'm like looking around. But I thought that was, Sean Woods was going to make the shot that nobody would ever forget. And he had at that moment. But then, it was like those car wrecks unfolding. You could see Grant Hill's the ball coming, and you could see Leitner getting the ball, and he'd been perfect that day. And when the shot, as soon as it left his hand, it was that feeling he was going to make it. But yeah, I don't think I've been fortunate to see, I would argue, the two greatest college basketball games, Duke and Kentucky, obviously in 92.
Yeah.
And then because it was in Lexington, the 85 Villanova Georgetown championship game at Rupp Arena, not the last, but one of the last NCAA tournament games or championship games held in an actual arena, not an indoor stadium.
Yeah, a non-dome. Yeah, you're right.
Non-dome. Yeah. That was something special to watch Villanova that night. They were just amazing, especially in that second half.
No, that is amazing. Here's Brian says, enjoying the conversation from here in Texas. Great stories. Thanks, Brian. You were around the business for many, many years as well there in Dallas around me. Kenny, good to see you again. Mark Sternfield, nice job at the Derby.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, good to hear from you guys. Yeah, that's nice. See, this is the nice part of social media.
Yeah, no, it is.
Catch up. Nobody's flipping the bird, or at least we are not seeing it if they are. That's good.
I'm just not putting those people up. No, that's okay. Kenny, years later, I was in Los Angeles with ESPN, and I looked out my office window, and there you were outside taking a little bit of a break. You were in the building because you did the Inside MMA show on Access. And another one of the traits that I thought you did very well is you didn't just cover the main sports. You liked boxing. You got into MMA. You did that. You do horse racing. What is it about the challenge of that? Tell me, because you weren't none of us grew up around MMA, and all of a sudden you were a personality in the sport.
Yeah, I grew up, my dad and I were watching the football, baseball, basketball, boxing. They were like a fight of the month or something. So that was what I grew up with. I didn't even grow up around horse racing, for what I guess I'm probably best known for, what I might be known at around the country. But what happened is in 2003, a man that was coordinating the high definition side of the Triple Crown with NBC, we happened to sit together during the Triple Crown meetings, all the way Derby, Preakness, Belmont, and we got talking, and he realized I covered sports, because let's face it, when I first came in, I was the horse racing guy at NBC. He just figured I was another horse racing guy. He didn't know had a sports background. So he said, I'm an executive producer. I'm taking a job as executive producer with Mark Cuban's HD Net, still kind of a startup, about maybe 3 years old at the time. Would you like to come and do some sports, football, basketball, maybe some boxing? I said, yeah, I'm all for it. And his name was Darrell Ewalt, and that began a friendship and working relationship all the way through 2016. And we were doing Pac-10 games, it was at the time. Let's see, Henry Bibby was coaching Southern Cal. This is how far back it goes, okay? Henry Bibby was coaching Southern Cal. Mark Few was a young coach, because we did West Coast Conference games too. He was a young coach at a place called Gonzaga at that time. We were doing West Coast, Pac-10, and Missouri Valley. And the reason we did those three conferences is ESPN didn't have a stranglehold on it. In other words, you didn't have to have permission to come in and do it, or you didn't have to pay ESPN as you did with other conferences. So we had three pretty good conferences, including one of the majors. And I was calling basketball games for them. And I did that, I guess, for about 4 years. And he would send out these surveys, did you watch the game? Did you watch UCLA, Arizona State? Did you watch, Southern Cal, Washington? Yes. Did you watch Missouri Valley game? Did you watch, Northern Iowa play this week? Yes. What did you watch it on? And we'd have the bug, as you know, the bug is what's the identification. I think most people know that, in the corner that you're watching NBC, CBS, whatever you're watching. And so there was HD Net, pretty big. We'd say coming up on HD Net next and all that. So anyway, about 85% of the people put down they were watching ESPN. They just assumed if it was a sporting event, it was on ESPN.
Right.
So Mark decided, and guys made $1 billion, so I was going to go with his decision that while we would still do some basketball games, we were going to focus more on this rising sport of mixed martial arts, which had not been around not even 20 years at that time. And there was not a weekly show devoted to it that would show. Actually, the UFC was the big one. It still is, obviously. But we would also cover other MMA events, and he knew that young people could afford a HD set that couldn't in the past, because HD Net was the first high definition network. It was pure HD, as you know, Dave. If you had standard def, you couldn't see us. It was scrambled. So that's how we got into mixed martial arts, and that's how I was brought in, because I had done boxing. I called boxing for HD Net, and he wanted a sportscaster to kind of make this a meet the press sports center kind of show that I would anchor it. And I had, who's become one of my dearest, closest friends, Boss Rutan, the first UFC heavyweight champ. He is, great guy. And Boss was there. So I said, if Boss is going to do it, I'm totally comfortable because everybody knows, respects this guy. And I love working with this guy, and we're going to do it. And we did that run for, I think, like 450 shows or something I did from 07 to 16. Yeah. Wow. That was a lot of shows. We had some guests on too. I mean, all kind, not just great fighters, but we had, some actors we popped through. We had Gary Stevens, the jockey, on one time. And, because I said, let's get some different sports guys on. Let's get Gary. Yeah,
because they follow it.
And one of the guys producing it said, well, I understand this. And I go, I want to tell you something. The only two athletes I know that only get paid for when they work are jockeys and MMA fighters.
Yeah.
They don't have guaranteed contracts, and they both have to worry about weight. If they're overweight, it'll cost them money. Not just like when somebody gets fined in football for being overweight. You don't get a ride that day, or you don't get a fight, or if you fight you have to forfeit some of your purse. And so he brought Gary on, and he started talking with these fighters. They started talking about weight, and these guys are exchanging ideas about how to cut weight and stay in shape. It was a great show. There were a lot of shows like that people you wouldn't expect on an MMA show popped in, and I think the people respected the fact that we were covering it as a sport now. It wasn't a bunch of guys screaming, "I'm tougher than you," and let's get it on. We went a little further than that, and I was really proud of that show.
Yeah, I thought you guys did a great job because I knew nothing, but I would watch it because I thought you spoke to the common man too, who many of us were trying to figure out why in the world is this popular and where is it going? Because I didn't want to be those people like some of my talent, Kenny. I always say that they'd be like, that fantasy football, I'm not going to get involved in that, and it only turned into a multi-billion-dollar business. I kept telling them, you better learn to talk it a little bit. So, you've been around those kind of sports, and I think that that's really helped you continue to have a longevity in this business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think one of the things is when I was a kid, you mentioned Jim McKay earlier, one of the legends, obviously. And I grew up watching Wide World of Sports. And to me, it was always fascinating to watch the different sports, and learn a little bit about it. And it's led to some of the things I've covered with the NBC. I called professional bull riders for 3 years. I've called championship rides. I called the last ride of Little Yellow Jacket considered the Secretariat of Bulls. And I mean, that's kind of cool, and worked with people that were, learning about their background. And what I learned about everything that goes all the way back to the start of it all, even when I was doing a little radio up in my home area in Kentucky, was, tell the story, find out about the person, tell their story. Yeah. And, that goes back to the old up close and personal days, of the Olympics. And I used to love watching the Olympics for that reason. I'd get a vested interest in somebody I knew nothing about prior to that. I learned about countries I didn't know much about. And I think that's carried through with everything I've tried to do is, make it interesting. What would you be interested in? Aside from the obvious, here's a great trainer, here's a great horse, here's a great boxer, here's a great basketball player.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's great. Here's my friend Rich. He says, bring back barrel jumping. That's good. Rich, we'll take those. I want to bring back the Iron Man, or the Battle of the Network Stars. I want somebody to.
Yeah. I love that lumberjack.
To run through some things again.
Yeah, remember the lumberjack competition? I love that lumberjack competition. I used to watch that. I was like 19 years old watching that. Man, these guys are great. Yeah. And, I learned where Poughkeepsie, New York is because they had the demolition derby there. I mean, it's, these are just things that pop into your head all of a sudden. But, I thought that was interesting. And that's really what made me interested. And my dad, we'd watch it, and my sister would get up, we'd have the radio, and we'd, I'd do interviews with her, and I would turn down the sound on the TV and call games, which, pretty much everybody said our business is done. And, that was just, great times, and it was fun, and it still is. But, that's when it's really fun. You're still a little naive that, what could happen and the possibilities. So it works out, thank God it's worked out pretty good.
No, it really has. Kenny, I would say a lot of people are casual horse racing fans. If they watch anything, they may watch 1 to 3 of the Triple Crown events. So you're fortunate enough to be on center stage for people that are casual observers of that sport. So take us through in your lifetime now, what would you consider to be a peak year or set of years of the sport? And where is the sport now, you think?
I think, as you mentioned, like the Derby is the most watched sporting event after the Super Bowl at that time of the year. Yeah. In between that, it's the most watched. And the demographics are it's close to unique. That it's about a 50-50 split. Most sporting events will lean toward males. This is men and women watch the Derby. People gather and have parties around the Derby like they do Super Bowl. And it's interesting because it's an event more than a race. It's a 2-minute horse race. People are planning their whole day. We're doing like 7-8 hours of live TV coverage for a 2-minute race. We're showing a few other races. So like you say, that's the only time they tune in. So with that, I think, from my time there, the 21 years covering this Triple Crown for NBC, 2015 American Pharoah winning the Triple Crown, I think was just a highlight moment in the sport because it'd been so long since 1978 there was a Triple Crown winner. There was so much talk and legitimate talk. Should the Triple Crown be changed? Should it be a longer period of time between Derby, Preakness, and Belmont? Nobody's ever going to win this again. I had a really interesting interview with Steve Coburn, the co-owner of California Chrome the year before,
Yep.
who said live on TV he didn't think he'd ever live to see another Triple Crown winner because he did not like the system where a fresh horse could come into the Belmont as did and beat his horse, the California Chrome. And then, of course, the next year, Pharaoh pops up. And he was such a great story, and he was such an incredibly likable horse. You know, he had personality.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
people could come around and see him, and he was almost like a big golden retriever. I mean, you know, people could come up and pet this horse. I don't like to pet thoroughbreds; they will bite you. But I have petted this horse. You know, he was that cool. And I think that was the moment that, you know, kind of galvanized people that, hey, here's American Pharaoh. He had a great name, even though Pharaoh was misspelled. He had this great name, a memorable name. He was a horse that ran out there and said, come and get me. And you couldn't catch up with him. And he ran past the Triple Crown. They did not retire him, which is going to be the standard for a great horse. They're going to retire him because the stud fees are so good. But they ran him all the way through to the Breeders' Cup. He won what's called the Grand Slam now, and I don't think it'll ever happen again, to win the Triple Crown and the Breeders' Cup Classic. You know,
that's amazing.
That. So I think that was it. Now, bringing it forward to this year, and we know all the controversy that's going on with the Derby winner, Medina Spirit. We're still waiting for the final outcome of this and all the things that have happened. You know, I think this has shed a light on a lot of things. It's obvious to say this is embarrassing for Bob Baffert, who I think is one of the great trainers in the sport. Of course it is.
He is.
I think what some people in horse racing need to be more aware of, those that quickly rush to judgment on everything concerning this situation. And again, I'm just going to play out. I realize what the tests have shown is that it's awful for horse racing right now because it's very confusing. I think it shows that there needs to be more control universally. I mean, across the board, California, Kentucky, New York, Arkansas, Florida, all these racing states can't be that different in their jurisdictions and in what rules are accepted and what's not. And when you have a situation, which we have with Medina Spirit, where it's not a banned substance, it's not a performance enhancer, but the ointment that they rubbed on his butt that got into his system is a violation. That is not allowed in there. Betamethasone is not allowed within a certain period of time in the state of Kentucky. So he violated the rules. No, I'm not defending that, but I'm just saying when rules get to that kind of minutia and that confusing, we just need to, horse racing needs to come together and accept that where everybody has their little kingdoms and, you know, we'll do what we want in this state and we'll do what we want in that state. It really looks confusing to those people who just watch the Derby, like you said earlier, Dave, who are just fans from a casual distance, like to watch a Triple Crown race, and they're not going to keep up with the Haskell or the Travers or anything leading up to maybe the Breeders' Cup. And I think that there has been the real problem this year. And hopefully, if anything good comes out of this mess, when you have to talk about sending frozen urine up to New York for yet another sample, which is actually going on right now, I hope it is the urgency of horse racing to come together and have a rule that stays place everywhere. You know, I mean, you can't have the NBA playoffs right now. Philadelphia can't have a different set of rules on their court than Atlanta has on their court, and that's what you got in horse racing, and that's what's been brought to the forefront.
That's a very good explanation, Kenny. A lot of other sports have gone through times when they haven't been the most innovative or creative. Would you say if I said that? Would it be a criticism of horse racing in general that they don't have the biggest picture of thinking, of having forward thinking as much as they could with that sport?
No, I think you're right. And I mean sadly, the majority of people in horse racing are well-intended. There's some that are still stuck into the 50s and 60s that, you know, they still think that baseball, boxing, and horse racing are the three sports out there. I had an executive from New York, from the National Thoroughbred Racing Association, asked me 2 or 3 years ago, we're on a plane together. He said, what's this cage fighting you've been covering? What's that all about? Because I notice it's passed us up in popularity. I said, well, it's called mixed martial arts, and here's the deal. Networks are clamoring to sign the UFC. It was on Fox at that time. Now, of course, it's on ESPN. I said, they're competing. People aren't competing, you know, some. But they're not out there saying, I got to have this. Outside of the Triple Crown, you're not having all these people wanting to get these races in the middle of the summer. And racing actually subsidizes many of the things you see on TV. be it on Fox or on NBC Sports Network this summer. And therein is the difference. But I think that they want to protect the sport so much that, it's like it's like the helicopter parent. You gotta move over a little bit to the side and take a bigger look at this sport and say, are we confusing people? Why is the rule different? And this happened in California, for example, the horse wouldn't have been disqualified. He would have kept the championship. And again, we don't know what's going to happen in Kentucky, although the odds look like he will not be the champ if I had to bet right now, given the failed drug test. But, you can't have two states that are that polar opposite in the way that they're going to settle a rule. No other sport that's a major sport would even think about something that can be this confusing.
Let me ask you another question. The emergence of gambling to where we are now, that was something that horse racing kind of had as almost an exclusive, other than the illegal gambling going on. Is it hurting or helping that we have now an influx of gambling talk and gambling everywhere now in sports?
I think what's going to help, it already has happened in some states, is the racinos, where they brought in like at Sunland Park down in New Mexico. Up in Charlestown, it's West Virginia. They have a big casino right across from the racetrack. That's brought more money in. I think that's the part that probably is going to help. Horse racing now is not so anti-casinos as they were 10 years ago. They realized that there could be a symbiotic relationship there, and I think they know that they have to embrace that, and most are. Even in the state of Kentucky, that long was, kind of poo-pooed the idea of ever thinking about that. They're getting involved in it. The Red Mile, as you remember, Dave Harness Racing Track, they have they have slot machines now. They're not called slot machines. They're called, I think it's like historic racing machines or something, because they'll have like an old race up there, as well as the three cherries that pop up. It's a slot machine, okay? Forget the semantics. It's a slot machine. And Keelan owns the Red Mile now. And so these are things that you never thought would happen. Probably racing people didn't think. So that's where they've been the most forward thinking, is their embracing of casino gambling and tying it in and trying to get, some of that money to put purse money in and get bigger races, and obviously attracting more bettors to that race, as well as in, the top trainers and horses. So I think that's been the biggest thing. But yeah, the fact that you can sit there on your app and make bets too on the races. Yeah. That's been huge. And that's been helping racing, because they realize they have to do that, because, it's going to get to the point where, you'll be sitting at an NFL game and you're going to be making bets on the over under in the third quarter while you're setting up in row 25, just get on your app. So that's the way the world's gone. And I think horse racing, at least that part of it, with the app and with the embracing of casinos, that's the best thing they've done as far as trying to move forward.
Here is Tim. Tim, one of our former photographers there in Lexington, Tim Gibson, still living there in Lexington. I follow him as well. Great seeing you both, he says. Good to see you as well. Here's another one. The great Sky Yancey. Sky. Hi, guys. Our former co-news anchor there.
And we would see Sky sometimes in LA, because she lives in Malibu now.
No, that was one of my great things, was to see Sky and Tom, and I miss seeing them. They had a wonderful backdrop there in Malibu. I always told my friend Steve, the baseball coach there at the time, who is now down at Baylor, I always told him, you've got the easiest recruiting job of all. You bring kids there and you tell them, son, this is the baseball field, and that's the Pacific Ocean right on the other side of the fence. It's the easiest recruiting job of all time at Pepperdine.
Man, isn't it though? And then conversely, I'm calling a Pepperdine game out there in, I think, 2004. Paul Westphal, the late Paul Westphal, one of my favorite players, was coaching. He was coaching then. So I asked him the day before at the shoot around. I think Ronnie Turioff was his star player that year, right? Yeah. Went on to the Lakers. I said, has it gotten, you've got the NBA background. There are people that know you. You're not that far removed. And you're here. You're in Malibu. Even though the Firestone Gym, as you know, is nowhere nearly where they play basketball. It's nowhere near as nice as the baseball field. It's like a high school gym. So anyway, he said, ask me after the game tomorrow about how tough it is to recruit here. I didn't understand. So the game goes off at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 Eastern. So we do the game. This was an HD net game. And so you know how you're doing the closeout and you're reading the script. Well, join us next week. We'll be at Arizona State as they host the Wildcats of Arizona, big in-state rivalry, whatever. That's next week on HDNet. And this guy's tapping me on the shoulder the whole time. And I'm kind of trying to push him away. I'm thinking, so I turn and we finish. I said, what's the urgency, man? I just had like 30 seconds here. He goes, I'm sorry, pal, I got to move press row, which was card tables slid together, by the way. He said, because we're getting ready for the match. I go, huh? I look up, and the BYU and Pepperdine men's volleyball teams are now on the court, and they're putting the net standards up, and more people are coming in than are leaving the arena. And so I'm walking out, and I go by and say they'd won, so Westfall's in a good mood. And I said, Coach, good to see you. I think we're doing another game in 2 or 3 weeks, whatever. And I said, he said, hey, Rice, when you get back to Kentucky, I want you to go ask Tubby Smith how many times he leads in for the men's volleyball team at UK. And that's what it is to recruit at Pepperdine. And I got it. And that was the end of story. And I understood recruiting basketball much different than recruiting for their water polo team or, like you said, their golf team or their baseball team.
This is just so much fun. Beth Christina, she watches every week, one of our board members here. And what I do now, bring back Saturday Wide World Sports. Yeah, we said that, Beth, because that was a beautiful thing. Here's Rich again. If you put Dave on Secretariat, would it still win? How important is the jockey? Well, I'm going to say that Dave wouldn't be able to stay on out of the gate. But how important is the jockey, Kenny?
The jockey, all things considered, can make a length or two difference. A length is about a fifth of a second.
And has won and lost a lot of races.
And you start thinking, that's a blink of an eye. Bob Baffert lost 2 Triple Crowns by, he's won 2, but he lost 2 by a blink of an eye in 97 with the Silver Charm and in 98 with Real Quiet, back to back. They lost by less than a second total. So a good jockey can move a horse forward maybe 2 lengths. And that's huge in a horse race. You see how close these races are. So, yeah, if all things are equal, you want the best jockey. And it's not a coincidence why some of the jockeys, like over the years, like Jerry Bailey, my colleague and friend at NBC, or Gary Stevens.
One of my favorites. Yeah.
Pat Day and these guys. There was a reason that they were getting a lot of mounts, like John Velasquez. There's a reason he gets big mounts. There's a reason the Ortiz brothers get big mounts is because they're good. And if again, you come into a situation, it's like you want your best guy batting cleanup, and you want you are getting at least on base to set up everybody else, and that's what a good jockey does.
Kenny, I never thought it'd go this long. I'm sorry. I got a couple more minutes. Are you okay? You got dinner reservations?
No, I'm not. We're staying home tonight. It's like 91 degrees here in Kentucky, and I'm very casual, except for this. Look, I put a sport coat on. I said, my great friend Dave has invited me on. I'm not going to go in there sloppy. I shaved and cleaned up,
Yeah, no, that's good. I got to throw a couple of old TV things. You're always a big fan of the world of using consultants, I remember. If I remember right, you walked out on a consultant. Was this a consultant that said the knot on your tie or my tie? I can't remember. Was too small.
He told me
this was an expert that was paid.
Yeah, they came in and, who knows, they were paying them more money than they were giving us to go on NCAA tournament runs where people were actually engaged watching. They were paying these people to come in. And as with most consultants, they will come in and pick at things just so they can justify their position. And yes, they were worried about that my knot was just a shade small, maybe yours too. And that was the biggest concern. That, and maybe we put a lot of emphasis on UK sports. Gee, you're in a college town where the biggest animal is UK, and then maybe this horse racing coverage in the spring, maybe we should curtail that just a little bit, because it was only leading up to Keeneland's meet, leading up to the Kentucky Derby. And that's when I said, do these people even know what state they're in? I
think you got up and left one of them.
Yeah, I told him, it's like going to Boston and saying, you know what, I'm cutting back on this hockey stuff, okay? This Bruins, what do you want to cover that? This Red Sox stuff in the spring training? I don't understand that. I said, that's how absurd this is to come in and tell us that. And I can't believe you get paid money. And how can I get this job to basically say inane things and get paid? And yes, I was not a fan, and nor am I still. And as I've learned over the years, I mean, yeah, you have people that can offer you constructive criticism,
Tips. Yeah.
and I have listened in on some seminars where there's making suggestions like interviewing techniques and things that are interesting. And to me, they're not so much consultants as they're like instructors. It's like, going to an advanced class.
Yeah.
But as I tell people, that to me is important. And just like human interaction like we're having now is much more important to me than, what your degree is. My degree in college, by the way, is in Bachelor of General Studies from the University of Kentucky. I never had a broadcasting degree, no communication. Maybe it shows, but to me, I'd worked a lot. When I was a kid, I was the local disc jockey, and then when I was in junior college, I'm calling football and high school football and basketball, and that experience thing is still the most important thing. And I'll tell you a quick interaction story, if I might, just to show this.
Yeah.
That I tell these people in college that it's a lot more about just a textbook and reading on the demographics of who watches what. Now, Bear Bryant comes into Kentucky. Last time that the great coach would come in, I was still doing weekend sports. This was my first big superstar interview. Okay. And I'm like 23 or something. And I looked about 14 or 15 then. So we're waiting on Bear Bryant to come in, obviously pre-cell phones and everything else. Bryant's plane is late. You can't get in touch with anybody. I mean, the plane is late. So Bryant comes in and, an hour or so late. Meanwhile, it was at the Holiday Inn out on Newtown Pike, Dave. You know where that is in Lexington.
Oh, yeah.
So we're waiting on him to come in. Now I get paged out there. The guy who was the sports director said, "Are you going to go out and shoot the high school football game after this?" I had a camera guy with me, which was a luxury then. It was a two-man. Actually had a camera guy because we were going to interview the great Bear Bryant. And I said, "We'll catch the second half." I'm waiting until Bryant comes off here because the other two stations had left. I said, "We're actually going to have an exclusive." Bryant comes in, and he was like John Wayne. I mean, he was 6'4" or so, and he had that swagger, and people are lined up to see him. And they're taking Polaroid pictures and things, just there's Bear Bryant. People that probably weren't even Alabama fans want to see him. That's how big this deal was for him to come back to Kentucky. Anyway, we get ready to do the interview with him. The photographer had left the camera running. So as we get ready to do it, there's a click, and there's that dull thud, as you know.
Oh, no.
Shivers up your spine. The battery has died. So Bryant kind of half put his arm around me and said, "I'm sorry, kid. I'm tired. I got to go." And I said, "Well, I understand, sir." I said, "But Shorty Jamerson had told me so much about you that I'm just glad to meet you." And he stopped and stood back. Shorty Jamerson had caught the 2 touchdown passes when Kentucky beat Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, in the 51 Sugar Bowl, the biggest win to this day in Kentucky football history. Now,
wow.
You would really have to know Shorty Jamerson, okay, because he didn't go on to play in the pros or whatever, but he came back to coach high school football in my home area. That's how I knew him. And so he asked me, "How do you know him?" I tell him the story. We start talking about those old days, and he starts talking about Babe Parilli and Bob Gain, and suddenly the Bear is having this emotional, kind of reunion, talking about these guys. We get the camera battery on. I said, "Hey, could we keep talking?" He goes, "Yeah." He gives me like a 3-minute interview exclusive that night. And the whole point of that is just being able to relate to people. If I'd have said, "Hey, my battery's dead, can you help me out?" I don't think he would have.
Yeah, no, that is a classic story. That's what puts it in a nutshell. When I say, when people say, where do I go? How do I get started? I tell a lot of these younger kids, don't be afraid to be a producer first. Because you know how it is, Kenny. Once the holidays comes, they need somebody to go report or to sit in on the anchor desk. And suddenly, you go in one way and you don't come out of the industry another. You move up in the business. So I know Mark Sternfield, who said hi to you earlier, he wondered if you'll be handling any equestrian events in Tokyo. Are you on the Olympics?
I will be doing boxing in the Olympics. I'll be working with former welterweight champ Sean Porter will be the analyst. So we'll be doing boxing. It'll be my 4th Olympics and my 3rd boxing and my 2nd straight Olympics calling play-by-play of the boxing tournament.
Yeah. If you think everything's going to go smoothly with everything?
I think so. I hope so. I believe everybody is cautious and taking all the precautions and aware of everything that's going on. And so I feel comfortable. NBC feels comfortable. I have total faith in, it's incredible, such a well-oiled machine that they are in getting everybody ready for all the different sporting events that are taking place and keeping us all informed in the schedules and moving everybody around. So I feel, I've looked at the seminars we've had online, and I just feel really good about this Olympic. I'm looking forward to it. I missed it last year. I missed a lot of things, as most people did last year, just the interaction with people more than anything.
Well, it's folks, it's one you can tell the chemistry we have. We don't get a chance to catch up too often, but we could go on, and I hope you've enjoyed some of this. Kenny, I always said that I knew one thing: you were so talented and comfortable there. You weren't going anywhere, so I had to. Sometimes people wonder why you make certain moves. I honestly, I enjoyed that market, and you're at a certain age, you think. There's got to be bigger things out there that I've got to achieve, but there was nothing more enjoyable than being on the weekends with you on weekdays there.
Well, Dave, you're a great friend. I'm really proud of all your success. I mean, really, getting to see you covering the big events and the interviews that you've done. I really am proud of that. And as my friend and also as a former colleague too, to see how well you've done. And again, it kind of goes back to, Lexington, Kentucky kind of sneaks up on some people sometimes.
Yeah.
There's been some talented cats come through there. And so I'm really, really happy for all that you've done, and bless you for all the work you're doing with the ALS Society and all. I have a personal interest in that as well. So I really do admire that. I mean, that
was another thing.
That's what's really important.
Yeah, no, it really is. And this is coming up on our big fundraising walk week next week. And one of the things that I'll be unveiling to some for my own fundraiser is a picture of my mom. My mom, who passed away in '92 when I was working with you, and you were one of my first calls, Kenny. And at the time, you had been doing the Jerry Lewis Telethon, which I got a chance to work with. So you had cared about those with ALS and MDA, and you understood, and I always appreciated that. You helped me through some very tough times during those years. Well,
it's until people go through it, they kind of want to say the right thing. They don't understand, and I appreciate that they want to say the right thing, because all you can do is have hope and wish everybody the best for maybe something in research down the road, and God willing that would take place. And I was really proud, probably as much as anything, when we worked together on those MDA telethons, that we would be able to send a kid to summer camp. That was something. That was at least some hope, some promise for a kid with Duchenne muscular dystrophy or something like that. So I was really, we raised some money and did some nice things, and a lot of people were involved in that Lexington, and I really, I kind of miss the old telethon days. Although I gotta tell you, I don't know. I guess I could still go 23 hours. Yeah, I know you could. Remember we went straight through back then.
I mean, that was a production. I tell everybody, that was a production. They got on center stage as an industry. The old MDA doing the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and say what you want. I'm sure there were critics of Jerry, but my gosh, I've gone back and watched just the tote board announcements at the end of about 30 years of them, and just to see the totals grow and how much he and his friends put into that, I think that propelled a lot of things in the world of fundraising and nonprofits.
You remember? Yeah, it was amazing. And remember, it's like every 50 minutes, we would pop back up and do like a 10-minute hit or something, I think.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we would close out like 30 straight minutes or something locally, and bring people on, and athletes would come in. And Tim Eppenstein, I bet he's watching. Remember Tim?
Yep.
He was one of the great audio men of all time and announcers. And I think he stayed with us the whole time too, And
there's a photo. We were out at I believe Lexington Green. There's Brad James getting ready to interview someone during one of those cut-ins that you sent it to us out at the mall. I found that the other day. So our weather guy. Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. Like everybody got involved. Everybody
worked. News anchors, the weather people. The interns would come in and work extra. The photographers would come answer phones, and that was great to have that. It really was.
Yeah. Kenny, I told you I'll be in Lexington the end of August. Hopefully a bunch of folks watching here will have a little reunion and toast each other. You're my friend, and thanks for doing this. This was a lot of fun. Dave,
it's been my pleasure. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed. Seriously, I'll tell you in person when I see you in August how much I've enjoyed this. God bless, man. Keep up the great work that you're doing, and thanks for having me on. It really means a lot.
All right. Stay the same, Kenny. Thanks, man. I'll see you soon. That's the great Kenny Rice, and I hope you enjoyed that. This is why I do this. These are friends, and sometimes when you catch up with friends, hopefully other people that listen, you just learn a little bit, have a little laugh, and you realize that you just realize that don't lose touch with people. And that's the biggest thing is more and more I see people that we've lost, and I just said, you know what, we're going to do this each and every week, whether I'm tired or not, because it's a good chance to catch up, and hopefully we bring a smile to you. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll do it again next week. It's going to be the night before our large event for our ALS walk in North Carolina. And so we're going to have a broadcast next Saturday. So we'll still do one next Friday night. And thank you so much for joining Live at 5. You don't forget, you can go and check out the YouTube channel. Shore Sports Media is what you search, and you can watch some of the past ones. If you missed last week, it was really a Hall of Famer, an NBA photographer in Andy Bernstein. So check out those past ones as well. Thank you for your support of this. And for Live at 5 and Dave Shore, be blessed and have a great weekend, everybody.